Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Shane Ohly from Ourea Events. Welcome to our webinar with Luke Elliot and Sarah Francis. Friends for Life is the title of this evening's webinar, and I'm sure this is going to be really, really interesting. We are going to record this so people can catch up with it later on. I'm just going to deal with a bit of housekeeping. Sometimes the internet connection might drop out. If I disappear, my colleague Liv, who is here as well, will take over. Hopefully that has happened. That has happened once, and I disappeared for the entire webinar. If you've got any questions, please use the Q&A function to put a question into the chat, or the Q&A. Use the Q&A function to send us a question, and we'll come back to all of those questions in the end. This will probably last about 60 minutes, there maybe a little bit longer if there's lots of questions. And hopefully it will be a really interesting discussion with Sarah and Luke, excuse me, about their Northern Traverse experience. So, Sarah, first of all, where are you this evening and how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm in Fleet in Hampshire. I'm in my home, although it's not my home for much longer. I've just got my keys to my new house today, so I'm just super excited, full stop.
Wow, a house move is always exciting. And Luke, where are you and how are you?
I'm in Plymouth and Devon, and yeah, I'm good. Just got back from the Brazili Beast at the weekend. Good fun weekend in Wales. Lots of washing and cleaning today.
I think for people who are listening or watching this evening and will be watching the kind of YouTube feed in the future, it'd be really great to just kind of explain your background, because you probably didn't start your running career in St. Bees at the start of the Northern Traverse. So maybe if I come to you first, Sarah, could you tell us a little bit about your background as a runner and your kind of the highlights of your journey?
Okay, running wise, I've been orienteering for the last 25 years or so, and running classic mountain marathons such as the Kim, Saunders, Lamb, such like. I've been ultra running since 2017. That was the Lakeland 50, which I really, really enjoyed. And I ran that and thought, what else can I do? I ran Lakes in a Day that year as well. And it's sort of gone on from there. And I did Cape Wrath in 2022 and the Dragons back in 23. And it was, yeah, so it's been a long sort of journey along those lines. But what got me into the ultra running in the first place was actually doing the straight through Devizes to Westminster canoe race in 2016 with my friend Wu. And we had a lot of challenges on that race, but we still made the finish. And it was like, okay, what else can I do? Sort of challenging myself sort of in the running world. So that was why I started running the ultras, but self-navigated mountain style are my preference.
Yeah, and absolutely my background as a runner was always those kind of self-navigated, kind of a little bit more traditional mountain races, mountain marathons. And I think it does set you up well to be a well-rounded trail runner in the future. Luke, what about your background?
So I started running in 2012, I think. I got into ultras in 2014, trying to raise money for Alzheimer's charities. Then, I mean, that took me all over the place. I did a race in Romania, I did a couple in France, loads in the UK. And then in 2019, I developed a cough, which later got diagnosed as relapsing polychondritis. Try and say that when you're drunk. That was in 2020. I managed to complete Dragons in 2019, despite that not being diagnosed at the time. And yeah, I now walk rather than run, so I do have to consider cut-offs of races. And Northern Traverse sort of fit the boat on the sense that I felt that I could probably walk it and get in the cut-offs.
I think actually I've been a little remiss in not perhaps introducing a little bit more about the Northern Traverse and your journey and what and why we're talking to you this evening. So I'm just going to take a little step backwards. So the Northern Traverse has been taking place since 2016. It follows Wainwright's coast to coast footpath. It is roughly 300 kilometres. It travels through the Lake District National Park, Yorkshire Dales National Park, and then the North York Moors National Park to finish at Robin Hood's Bay. It's a really wonderful, logical journey. And when the event was actually originally created by James Thurlow Open Adventure, and we took on the organisation of it in 2022. But both myself and James always had the same principle in that we wanted the cut-offs to be very, very, I'm going to say lenient, but welcoming might be a better word actually, so that someone could essentially power hike and also get a break at the support points for a couple of hours and then power hike again. So it was always designed to be something that, whilst runners will race it for sure, or some runners will race it, it would be a bit more welcoming and achievable for kind of, I'm going to say normal people, but the two of you are far from normal, I would say. I think you're quite extraordinary. And it's that extraordinary journey that I want to explore with you tonight and how it all kind of came together for you. So I've kind of, hopefully that maybe makes a little bit more sense to everybody who's listening. Let's take another step back though to your running background. Sarah, you talked about that experience of the Lakeland 50 being your kind of pathway into ultra running. Maybe you could talk about your kind of favorite distances, favorite challenges, and maybe why ultra running has that pull for you.
Okay. I like challenging myself, and I like sort of the self-supported nature of some of these longer events. I mean, when I ran that first Lakeland 50, I didn't know whether I could do it. I didn't know whether my knees would put up with running in the mountains for 50 miles, and then that just seems such a long time ago now. But yeah, so I really enjoy, as I say, the navigating element of it, the challenging yourself, being out on your own. I do normally do these things on my own. This is very, very new experience, what ended up with the Northern Traverse, palling up with Luke for the last third.
Okay, and Luke, you've both got a lot of experience, and Luke, Dragon's Back and Cape Wrath, I'm sure other events that I'm not even aware of. Would you have a favourite distance, a favourite event that kind of sticks with you?
When I was running, I think the 100K for the speed factor, I can do that, or I could do that distance in a relatively good time. And then the 100-mile was more of an adventure in the sense that you have way too much time to go inside your own head. And you find yourself sort of, a lot of it's positive, but every now and again you hit those negative times, and you have to get over that in order to complete. And it's quite exciting, in a weird sort of way. But yeah, I mean, for me, the thing that got me with ultras, I mean, my first marathon was done on a whim with 6 weeks training. My mates went, "Oh, come and do this. You say yes to everything," and I did. And it kind of was the same with ultras. But then discovering the camaraderie of it, and as I say, the way, oh my God, my body can achieve these things. It was all very exciting. So I was hooked.
Awesome. And if I take you both back to standing in St. Bees at the start of the event, how did you both feel? So Sarah, first, we'll come to you. What were your thoughts on the start line? How were you feeling? Had you ever done anything as long as 300 kilometers non-stop before?
I hadn't done non-stop, no, done the distance and more over stage races, but I was excited standing on the start line. I'd gone and selected my pebble. I was also a bit bit of trepidation of, you know, what was laying before me, and, you know, I've got to get this pebble across the country. But that in itself is exciting, taking the pebble from one side of the country, from the sea, right to the other side of the country to the sea. Yeah, so a mixture of excitement and trepidation, but I was really, really, really looking forward to the challenge.
Brilliant. That sense of challenge is one of the most appealing things of these long ultra races and challenges, I think. Luke, how about yourself? We take you back to St. Bees.
For me, I was stood there with my mate Roy. I was looking forward to 5 days in the hills with him. And I mean, that unfortunately changed at the first checkpoint. But I was also thinking that there's no need to rush here, because that little bridge that comes up very, very quickly creates quite the bottleneck. So I wasn't going to walk fast to that. I was just going to casually stay at the back. So yeah, and then just thinking, crikey, there's 300 kilometers to go. I was kind of trying to avoid that thought, to be honest.
Did you find, just as a kind of follow-up question, did you find, same, I can actually ask Sarah as well, but maybe Sarah first, did you find, having done things like Dragon's Back, that gave you some strength and confidence that the Northern Traverse would be achievable?
I think so. I mean, with any of these things, obviously it's a long way for things to go wrong, but I know I can look after myself. I know I can deal with mental lows. So that's always something to sort of go back to. Or, you know, I know I should be able to do it, unless I fall off and break my ankle or something equally ridiculous. Even then, I'm sure I would have managed to grab my poles and limp to the finish, you know.
Luke, I guess same question for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of exactly the same for me. I don't want to come across as sort of full of myself, but when I stand on a start line like that, I'm not overly daunted. I'm just thinking, right, this is the task at hand. I've got to get from A to B and crack on, and then deal with whatever comes up on route. And yeah, whether it's hard terrain or lack of sleep, or, you know, whatever the challenge might be, you get through it. I think that's the key thing.
Earlier, Luke, you mentioned about the 100-miler being a bit more of an adventure, because, you know, things always happen. And I think the 200-mile distance, effectively, that is the Northern Traverse 300K. It's a little tiny bit less than 200 miles. But I think the real challenge with these long events, 200 milers, is how you deal with the inevitable problems that will come up. Do you find that that's sorry, I'm coughing a little bit here. Is that a mindset that you were in at the start of the race?
Yeah, absolutely. Just not thinking about what could come up, just ready to deal with it when it did. Yeah, I think that's the way I sort of look at things. I try to avoid anything negative. So if there's any possibles that, you know, might seem a bit scary or whatever, I just avoid thinking about it.
Excellent. And Sarah, when you must have been contemplating these things as well.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I can keep a positive mindset. I can always find a positive in anything. It doesn't matter how negative the situation is. You know, I will find a positive in it somewhere. And I think that really helps you to get through events like this, because it's very easy, if you're being negative, to drift downwards. But yeah, so keeping a positive mindset, and yeah, being on top of things, definitely being bothered to sort yourself out, whether it's layers or sun cream or sorting your feet out or whatever it might be.
I really love that phrase, being bothered, and again I talk about it in the webinars we do when I'm with participants, and just having the mental capacity to sort out problems, whether it's a hot spot or a little bit of hunger or hot or cold, when it happens, not to let it drift. I was actually going to ask, again, I could just ask Sarah first about whether you've done any kind of specific, like, mental preparation for the Northern Traverse.
Okay, I would say the best mental preparation for this particular race was probably running the Winter on the Downs event in December in Storm Darragh.
Okay.
That was particularly horrendous weather, and we just had to get on with it. I mean, it was very cold because it was so windy. It was wet, and it was really quite miserable. So it was really, really good training.
And Luke, did you have any kind of particular like mental training approaches?
Nothing specific. I think in the past I've done races like the Hill and Hope 24, where you are running around in circles for hours and hours and hours. And I think if you really want some sort of mental preparation for anything like this, I think going around in circles for hours, especially of a small distance, is pretty good, because nothing's as bad as that. That's probably the way I look at it, but nothing specific in the run up.
Do you know, I think it's, you know, it's really easy to make a race hard. I think what is attracting people to the Northern Traverse is the fact that it's a great journey. And I mean, you were both out for over 100 hours, but every hour the scenery changes. You're making that journey through the landscape. I was going to ask again, I'll come back to Sarah first. Perhaps you could describe what your typical journey, your typical kind of 24 hours at the event would look like if you just took if you averaged that experience as you were traveling through England.
A typical 24 hours. Yeah, I mean, the terrain does change all the time as you're going along, but I mean, I tended to sort of break it down as to what part of the leg I was doing next, what part of the day it was going to be, what I was going to be seeing, you know, making sure that I was eating and drinking at the right times, you know, enjoying the terrain, you know, stopping to take the odd photograph, like stopping at the top of Kidsty Pike when I got up there because there was a fantastic cloud inversion, because you have got the time to, unlike some events that I run where I am seriously chasing cutoffs and I haven't got the time to, you know, take a photograph at all. But yeah, making sure that I had everything with me from the different drop points as well, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, it's really warm by day, but it's really cold by night. So I've got to make sure that I'm either going out running my wind warm layers or that I've got them in my pack to put them on later. Yeah, and chatting to some people along the way or running bits on my own. I mean, it was a bit variable and it did shift. I very much had 3 separate thirds to the race in a way with regards to sort of a typical 24 hours.
And Luke, maybe you could share what your typical 24 hours look like.
Making it clear to anyone out there, and this was a completely new thing to me, a non-stop race of this distance as opposed to a stage race, it makes a complete mess of your body. In the sense that there wasn't a typical 24 hours, in my opinion. You're not going from point A to point B in this time, etc. It was more, you know, one leg you could be getting in. I think Roy and I on the first leg got in about 2 a.m. Others you get in mid-afternoon, and then leave in the dead of night. So yeah, the scenery was changing, but also your timings were constantly like updating, like what is this, morning, night, afternoon? Yeah, so you were constantly sort of being bothered, going back to that, and sort of making sure you were on top of general admin. But in my opinion, there was absolutely no typical 24 hours in that race. Okay, maybe if you're at front though.
Okay, there's so many things to ask about there for both of you. I know we're always asked about nutrition and hydration by our participants. It's one of the most regular questions we get asked about. So I'm going to ask you both what your strategy was. I mean, for example, was there lots of sports nutrition? Were you buying pizzas from the garage on the A19, using the food, you know, at the support points? There's lots of options for you at this event. So maybe Sarah first, what was your approach?
Okay, my approach was, I had 2 soft flasks which held a pint each. Now they had water in only, and I had salt tabs to take if I needed to, and I would tend to have things like flapjacks and sort of sweeter type things whilst I was running, but at the checkpoints I would eat savoury, and I would make sure that I had proper meal when I arrived and that I would have a proper meal when I left, to make sure that I'd really got some extra calories going. I'm not a great fan of sports drinks, only because I tend to prefer to drink water, and I think if you're eating well, you need water to help wash it down. Whereas I've done races before where I'm eating and I'm having electrolyte drink and my stomach's just go on a complete overload. And then after about 70 miles, I find I can't eat. And then, of course, you just slow down and feel ill and get cold and that sort of thing. But also understanding the difference between, am I thirsty? Am I hungry? Or I haven't got an imbalance in my electrolytes, and learning for yourself, for you, which of those things it is, so that you can drink when you're thirsty rather than when you're hungry, etc.
I think that's a real skill, that, and the hard truth is it only comes with a lot of time on the trails. Luke, what about your approach?
A bit sporadic. I think I sort of went with in general one bottle of water, 1 bottle of electrolyte. Sometimes it was hot for the whole week during the day. There was probably a couple of times when I was doubling up on electrolyte. But then a mixture of gels, sweets, dates, a mixture of sort of sweet and savoury snacks. But then when I got to the checkpoint, it was essentially eating as much as I could. And there was a couple where my stomach just couldn't take anything. Which I don't usually have a problem on long races, and I know a lot of people do, but I've been lucky to now. But there was a couple of points where I could only manage soup, or not a hell of a lot, and that probably didn't help things on the next part of the journey, as it were. And if I was thinking about doing it again, then I would, I don't know, try to pack in a little bit more than maybe I did.
Okay. I'm going to come back in some detail to kind of when you guys first met and kind of that onward journey together, but I'm going to just stick with the kind of general experience at the moment. So 106 hours was your finish time. How much of that, I go to Sarah first. How much of that was actually spent sleeping out of that 106 hours, do you think?
I had a total of 5.5 hours sleep over the whole of the 104 hours. I mean, I had rest, but actual sleep, I had 5.5 hours.
Goodness. Luke?
I think I got around 10.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but yeah, I had a tally at one point and then I completely forgot what it was. So yeah.
I think with both those numbers, that speaks to me about an incredible amount of resilience and determination to get it done, because it is hard when you're sleep deprived to keep going. Sarah, were there any particular low moments come from that sleep deprivation?
Yes, because I couldn't sleep at Patterdale because it was too cold. I was then really needing sleep at Kirkby Stephen. I had a section in between Shap and Kirkby Stephen, I can't remember exactly where it was, where I just had a real sort of spiraling down. It's like, oh, I'm tired and this hurts and I couldn't get any sleep, and how am I going to get this done? I've only, it's so far away. And then it's like, no, stop thinking like that right now. Break this down. What you're doing at the moment, you're going there, right, deal with that. But that was actually the only, apart from going up 9 standards, that was the only sort of mental low point that I had. But yeah, going up 9 standards was the other one, where I was falling asleep on my feet despite the fact that I'd had 2.5 hours sleep at Kirkby Stephen. It's like, what's going on? Why am I falling asleep? I've just had 2.5 hours. What more do I need?
Luke, did you have some similar experiences?
I think my worst moment of fatigue was on the moors, and Sarah noticed that I was falling asleep on my sticks, and she just put her arm through mine and dragged me for I don't know whether it was seconds, minutes, hours, days. I mean, it seemed like ages. And then when I sort of came round, if you like, I was just a bit like, "Well, okay, where am I? Who am I? What am I doing? Oh, forwards, right, go." And yeah, that was probably the worst moment of fatigue, confusion. There was but thankfully Sarah was there to drag me through, which was ideal.
I think this is the perfect moment to take a little step back in time and ask you when you first kind of met up and when you first started kind of moving together on the trail. So maybe, Sarah, where did that happen?
Well, I'd left Kirkby Stephen thinking I was fine. And as I was going up 9 standards, I was literally falling asleep. And I thought to myself, I can't sleep here. I'm going to get hypothermia. If I wait till I get to the top at the stones, I'll sit down there, have half an hour's kip because it'll be sunrise. So I'd done that. And then Luke came along. He'd left after me. He'd caught me up because I was falling asleep. And he asked how I was. I said, "Oh, not great. I'm going to need to have a kit. It's ridiculous." So he said something. I can't remember what he said. But anyway, decided that we would sort of walk together, see if it would wake me up, which it duly did because we chatted and Luke made me laugh. So, yeah, so we were then together for a little while.
Luke, do you remember what you said?
Not a clue. I mean, every time this has come up, we've thought about it, and I'm like, I've got no idea what I said to make Sarah get up again. I'm hoping it was mildly entertaining at the time. But yeah, I mean, that's where the journey started, and then we were together for a good chunk. Was it the next checkpoint, Sarah? I think
it was Keld, because I stopped at the waterfall at Keld to go and get some water. And you went on because I think one of the Simons had caught us up, so you went on with him. And then by the time I got my water, the other Simon had caught me up, so we then carried on together for a while and went through the lead mines. And then we met up together again somewhere around Richmond, but that was a bit of a blur.
Yeah, it was just coming into Richmond because I'd gone for a pint just before coming into the checkpoint.
This is in the middle of the race. You've gone for a pint.
Yep. So I went for a pint of Guinness, and then just as I was coming into the checkpoint, there was Sarah, and yeah, we were together again for the coming into that checkpoint.
Brilliant. Did you sleep at Richmond, and did the Guinness help?
Yes. And buddying up with someone was the best idea I think we had, because it was freezing at night, and the difference between 2 of you in a pod and 1 of you in a pod was ridiculous. And yeah, I don't think we got many hours at Richmond, did we, Sarah? But,
no, I think we got 2 hours, but at
least it was a bit warmer than what it would have been alone.
Definitely. I think it would have been like Patterdale otherwise, there'd have been no sleep, and then that would have been potentially a bit of a real problem. But that's where we made our pact. Because you asked did I want to stay together for the rest of the route, and I think yes, that's a good idea, and that's then a pact. And I've never done that in a race before, but then you're in a position where you've made that agreement, so you are going to stay together, look after each other, and not leave each other. So that's cool.
That's a wonderful moment. And Luke, had you ever done anything like that before in a race?
No, in all honesty. People I've bumped into along the way, chatted, and then one's gone in front, or you've naturally stuck together or whatever. But no, there was never any sort of discussion, like there was at the checkpoint, and wolfing down whatever food we could get our hands on, and then deciding, right, let's kip in a pod, get some hours, and then just head out together and complete the damn thing.
Do you know, one of the things I've certainly experienced and witnessed is how these like non-stop events, they kind of break you back down to a kind of a raw level, and you become perhaps a bit disinhibited, and and actually really honest with people as well. And that can be good or that can be bad, but it can lead to these wonderful moments of essentially saying to a stranger, let's go on a 150-kilometer journey together, which is what you were saying. So I'm going to, Sarah, how did that, well, actually, first question is, what do you spend the next, whatever, 50, 60 hours talking about?
We just talked about all sorts of things. One thing we did talk about, because we got some really amazing hallucinations on the fourth night, or maybe it was the third night. So we were discussing who was having the best hallucinations. I remember that. I was seeing a pack of hyenas, angry hyenas, and I think Luke was seeing clowns at the time. But we chatted about all sorts of things. I can't remember what now, to be honest. I mean, and funnily enough, the subject of music didn't come up until very, very late in the day. But yeah, maybe trying to set the world to rights. But no, chatted about all sorts of things, you know, what other things that we did, what work that we did, and just stuff, really.
Yeah. Luke, do you have any kind of top hallucinations to share?
It was literally everything and nothing, those conversations, but it got us to the end. Top hallucination. Honestly, I think Sarah won. We were seeing. I mean, we might as well have been in the sort of African savannah at one point. The animals she was seeing. But yeah, for me, I had some freaky clowns that came out at one point, and various other oddities. But yeah, nothing that really stuck out like to remember now.
Okay, I'm going to just jump back into some practicalities. You've both mentioned how cold it was overnight. I think year after year, I hear participants talk about how cold it is overnight. Year after year, we talk in our kind of advice to participants in my event director report to talk about how cold it is overnight. I guess reflecting on your experience now, what would you say to someone who was, regardless of the speed they were planning to travel at, but they were thinking about doing or had already entered, next year's event is sold out. So somebody lining up for next year.
I'd say definitely don't question the kit list. And certainly if you're going to be anything other than a front runner, you probably want to be taking more. I worked on the event last year at Patterdale and Lordstones, and it was very cold. This year I packed my Paramo great big coat. It's purely for Lordstones checkpoint. That's the only place it's coming out. But that's not what happened, because it was so cold at Patterdale. I wore it there. And I then, because it was going to be really cold on the next leg at the top of Kidsty Pike, I actually wore it, even though it meant that I was then going to have to, it weighs 700 grams. I was then going to have to carry it with me all the way to Kirkby Stephen. But it meant that I was toasty and I wasn't cold. And I'm really glad that I'd packed it. And certainly later in the race, I'd packed that away again in my drop bag. But I had another, which was the winter weight, which again wasn't mandatory because it wasn't cold enough as such. But I was very glad I had that, because it was a period of time when Luke was falling asleep, so we were going a bit slowly. So it was good to have had that extra warm layer on top of what was on the mandatory kit list. So yeah, don't question the mandatory kit list, and actually you probably want more.
We have toyed with whether we should add more to the mandatory kit list, and I think it's a real balance between, you know, absolutely describing to the nth detail what participants should and shouldn't do, and leaving them the scope to make choices and have adventure. But yeah, hopefully if anyone's listening here, the feedback is it can get very cold, and when you're 3-4 days into this event and you're depleted and tired and hungry and it's cold, you're going to feel it like you wouldn't do if you're just running in the evening with friends, you know, for a couple of hours.
Sorry, you've got to look at what place you're going to do. I mean, the front runners, they're probably not going to need that. They're traveling fast enough and they're not running into 4 nights. So you don't want to be saying, well, everyone's got to carry X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
But having a mandatory kit list, but then people having sort of thinking about it and perhaps packing a bit more for what they might need, and not worrying about what the kit's going to weigh. Train with the kit and then you won't notice it so much.
Yeah, Luke, again, kind of same question to you about kit and advice to future participants.
if you've got any spare room in your bag, your drop bag, stick in an extra layer or 3 for those checkpoints. I actually had a special treat bag which included a pair of slippers. I've got a pair of camping slippers that are like Permaloft. You've probably seen them, the rab ones.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got into a checkpoint, shoes and socks were off and straight into those, and it was like, oh, fantastic. So if you've got anything like that, I mean, it's gonna raise you up from, you know, being tired and everything else. But yeah, consider a little treat, maybe slippers, maybe something else. But if you've got room in your bag, use it.
Okay. You've both got, you know, years and years of experience to draw upon. And if there was someone maybe earlier in their running career, but they had signed up for their first multi-day event or maybe a long non-stop race, what would be, again, Sarah first, what would be the kind of bits of advice that you'd want to share with them?
I would enjoy it. Train with your pack. Definitely look after your feet, because if your feet are shot, then it's very, very difficult and painful to carry on. So always worthwhile looking after your feet. Prepare them beforehand, in the sense, I mean, I go around in bare feet a lot of the time, but I did make sure that I moisturised my feet for a week before the race. And I managed to come away with just one tiny blister, which I'd acquired in the last section of the race when we were running over some particularly horrible rocky bits that had just been dumped on the ground, it seemed like at the time, which meant that your feet were going all over the place. But yeah, definitely enjoy it and train with your kit, and yeah, go for it.
Great. In terms of advice for looking after your feet, I'm always interested when I see participants with manky feet and blisters, and also people like Sarah who have good feet. And I often ask them what they have done, what shoes they're wearing, what socks they're wearing. And without any exception, the continuous theme that comes out with people who've got good feet is that they're moisturising. So they're looking after their feet in the weeks and months ahead, and they don't have hard feet with calluses. They've removed the calluses and they've used lots of moisturiser, and then it doesn't seem to matter whether you're doing much else with your feet beyond that. So Luke, we're going to ask you advice you might give to kind of a novice participant.
Sorry about disappearing then. My laptop battery was about to die. So my number one thing would be invest in some decent poles. The first time I used poles was UTMB. I'd never trained with them. I was basically given this advice, unfortunately a little bit too late, but I was then lent poles by the same person. And what a difference they make. You know, if you're tired, struggling a bit, it does take the weight off. It does help. So that would probably be, my number one. Going back to making use of your weight limit and your kit list and whatever. Warm layers, but also if you've got room, stick in an extra waterproof, because if you get drowned, it's not going to dry. So therefore, having that extra waterproof jacket in your bag, in your drop bag, is super useful. Apart from that, consider that you may slow down at some point and practice walking with purpose up a hill. You know, do your hill reps running and your speed work and all the rest of it, but also consider a bit of walking in there, because it is different. It does use different muscles, and be prepared for the thing that might happen.
I think that's really good advice. So for me, as you were coming into the finish and we could see your tracker was a kilometre or so away and we were waiting at the bottom at Robin Hood's Bay to welcome you. You made quite an entrance, it must be said. And if anyone hasn't seen the video, I would recommend you go and watch it, and you can see that on our social media channels. Sarah, can you just describe those final minutes and finishing? How did you feel?
Oh, absolutely amazing. And we decided that we were going to sort of Kaylee spin in down the hill into the finish, because there was a live webcam, and Luke's friend had set him up for, not set him up, but said to him, you know, you've got to do something ridiculous coming into the finish. But no, it was amazing to, and there was all these people there. I wasn't expecting so many people there to be shouting us in. And yeah, it was just really cool, and just a really brilliant way to finish the event together.
And Luke, how did you feel?
Relief and achievement in equal portions. I very much enjoyed launching that pebble into the sea, as I'm sure Sarah did. And I think the best part was seeing so many friendly faces. Having worked as part of your team on the events, it gives you, I don't want to say an edge, but when you come into those checkpoints, when you come to the finish and you see so many people you know all cheering you, it is fantastic. It's something else. So I would suggest anyone that has the chance to get on the volunteering teams. It's a lot of fun. And not to mention my girlfriend holding a pint of Guinness. I'm very much looking forward to that as well. So yeah.
I was gonna ask you about that, because you both went and had a pint of Guinness soon after finishing. Was it a pint or two?
It may have been 3.
Just one for me. I couldn't have managed 2. I'd have been on the floor.
Yeah, me too. So, Sarah, looking back now, it's, what is it? I'm trying to think of the date. It's a month and, well, five weeks or so after the Northern Traverse. Please tell me you've got a glow of satisfaction and accomplishment. You know, how do you feel now?
Oh, I have, most definitely. And I've just been really busy in between, because straight after that I had students doing the Devizes to Westminster race, and I was there doing them, and then I was doing other things, and it's almost like I haven't had time to fully process it. But yes, I do. I feel a great sense of achievement, and yeah, really, really happy.
Great. And Luke, how about yourself?
For me, it proves that despite my health as it's come to be, I still have the ability and resilience to pull these things off, which yeah is fantastic. I'd be pretty miserable if I couldn't. So yeah, a huge thanks to you lot for putting on such a fantastic event, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
That is, well, thank you for that, and that's very generous. And as a race organizer, I can only say how much pleasure I get from seeing people achieve goals, which gives them that sense of satisfaction and accomplishment, because these are experiences that can literally last a lifetime, and it feels very special to me as well. And it kind of actually doesn't matter whether it's the first person across the line, or in your case the last people across the line. That sense of accomplishment is amazing, and it's wonderful to see it and to be able to create and share it with people. So how great. That's a lovely positive way to end. Liv, we were going to ask you, do we have any questions?
So currently, well, actually, we had a nice message from Simon, who just wanted to say thank you. He also we only got to Kirby Stephen in 2024, having to stop after a painful knee, and he also did it this year, and also made a very good friend along the way. So I think he's quite enjoying having similar stories like you guys. Matt Bell's just put into the chat, can you tell us what happens at the checkpoints regarding to rest? Are there actual places to sleep, or are you on a floor or a chair or carrying a tent?
Luke, do you want to cover that, and we'll ask Sarah about it as well?
a mixture of all of the above, but there's always a minimum of tent, and you'll be put in a pod. Depending on when you get there, will depend on which ones are free, which pod you get put into. There was one of the checkpoints that was inside, and the tents were inside, which was novel, in the sports hall with Neil. That was great. That was definitely the warmest sleep spot. And then, yeah, there's always seats, but consider they may be in a marquee. They may be sort of a mixture of inside and outside. There's always shelter, and have those warm layers ready to go.
Sarah?
Yeah, so the 4 main checkpoints where you have your drop bag, there are tents there, but I only used the tents at Kirkby Stephen because they were inside the sports hall, as Luke said. I rested in the checkpoint, and at Patterdale I put 2 chairs together and got my sleeping bag out and sat in that for a bit with my jacket on. And these sort of interim checkpoints like Glaisdale, you were inside, again, just put 2 chairs end to end and sort of had a bit of a doze like that. But yes, there's always sort of shelter, but as far as sort of the tents are concerned, they're at the 4 places that you've got your drop bag. But yes, have layers to put on at the checkpoints.
To add some maybe context for Matt's question, I think every race and event has a slightly different take on how to do these things. And Northern Traverse, we do ensure there's either space to sleep inside if it's a village hall, or there's tents provided outside or inside, depending on how big the sports hall is or village hall is. Food is obviously provided, but as a participant, you have a drop bag, which we transport between the support points, and in your drop bag is where you want to have that sleeping mat, sleeping bag, spare layers. And actually, I'm going to share some new for 26, that we are going to move participants' drop bags from Patterdale to Shap, so that they'll have an extra option to access their kit next year. We're basically making it easier. Very slightly. For people who know the details of the race, you'll see all of that information updated at some point in the future, but that was recently decided in a planning and debrief meeting after the 25 edition. Liv, back to you.
Amazing. Yeah, I just also put a link to the new tents that we've just got for all of our expedition races in the chat, if anyone wants to have a look. Caroline asks, was there anything you didn't have with you that you wish you did have?
Sarah, would you like to go for that first?
No, I actually managed to pack everything that I needed one way or the other, either in my drop bag or in my race bag. I suppose possibly it would have been nice to have had 1 extra layer with me on the descent from Grisdale Tarn to Patterdale, because it was that cold. But I mean, I wasn't cold when I got to Patterdale, just less warm than I would have liked to have been. But I had certainly kit in the drop bag. But yeah, I mean, I didn't use all my stuff. I did change my socks at every point that we had the drop bag, but no, there wasn't anything that I wished I'd had with me.
And Luke?
Very much the same. I think the best advice we can probably give is stick to that kit list, and add poles and add a couple of extra layers, and you'll be laughing to an extent.
It's funny because I meant to leave my poles in the drop bag at the start, because I was only going to ever use my poles if something went wrong and I needed them later on, but I forgot to do that, so they were with me. So I did use them from Ennerdale Bridge to the Blacksell Pass, and then put them away again, and then dumped them off at Patterdale in disgust because I didn't want them anymore. And I had them back again at Kirkby Stephen, and they were definitely useful when I was falling asleep on my feet going up 9 standards for sure. So yeah, I mean, I don't use poles that often, but they definitely have a place in these longer races.
Okay, back to you, Liv.
Caroline says, thank you, I'll be packing my slippers. That is all of the questions that we've had through for the moment. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add, Shane.
I think that's been a wonderful recap of a really awesome kind of race experience for Sarah and Luke. And as we got a sense as the race organisers of you moving together through the course, it was exciting to see that journey unfold. And I think we all, as runners ourselves, got a sense of kind of the experience you were probably having. And maybe to wrap up, we called this webinar Friends for Life, because I think that's how you described the experience at the end. How does that feel now?
Yeah, we will be friends for life. We went through a lot together for sure, and really helped each other and supported each other along the way, and had lots of laughs as well. So yes, definitely.
Luke?
Absolutely. We've got to pin down an event or something soon to meet up and sort something out.
Brilliant. I would like to say a big thank you to Sarah and Luke for giving up some of their time this evening, especially when the weather is so good. I think we're all probably looking out of our windows at some sunshine at the moment. To my colleague Liv, who is working from home at the moment on another sunny evening, thank you very, very much. I'm afraid the end to these webinars is a bit brutal. You click the leave button and it all finishes just like that. So I'm going to wish everyone a good night. If you have any questions about the event, please get in touch with Ourea Events, and you can send us an email, you can phone us up, or you can do live chat. Lots of options, or social media as well. So thanks everybody. Good night. Luke and Sarah, look forward to hearing about that adventure in due course. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.